Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another episode of Mango's Void. We're here with Mango. She's sleeping again. Wake up. Say hi to the family. Say hello to everyone. How are you doing today?
Doing well. It's beautiful out
Oh
today.
my God, yeah, the weather today.
Yeah.
This is where we are today, guys. So just thought we'd make you jealous. Thought we'd bring you over here with us.
Yeah.
So we can have a really important conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we want to brainstorm different ways that we can structure our relationships. I think we all know at this point that we've all inherited all of these unnecessarily archaic ideas about what a romantic relationship must be.
Mm-hmm.
I.e., in order for a relationship to be functional and loving, a couple has to live together,
Mm-hmm.
they have to sleep together, they have to have all their meals together.
Go in debt together.
They have to go into debt together. They have to see each other's families and merge each other's families. They have to merge their finances. You know, these are the norms of standard monogamous relationships. But I would like to argue that actually there really are only three things that you absolutely need in order to have a functional and loving relationship. And everything else is fair game.
Okay.
Everything else can be flexible, can be negotiated according to your needs. So here are the three things that I think every single relationship needs. Number one is kindness. So just a partner who is gentle with your imperfections, okay? And who's just nice to you even when they're mad at you. You know, even when someone's upset with you, they're still kind to you. Number two is shared vulnerability.
Okay.
So this is just someone that you can be open about with your anxieties, with your worries, with your problems, and someone you just don't have to put on a front for. You can be real with them, you can be vulnerable with them, and they feel they can be the same with you.
Can I suppress my emotion until they bubble up into violent fits of rage like my father?
That you cannot do. That one's not going to work in any relationship.
Okay.
And number three, and the last one, is just understanding. Okay. Someone who is interested in and can make sense of your weird and wonderful mind and your sensibilities and your obsessions and your preoccupations. You know, we all have our things and we all long for someone who is interested in why we have those things and interested in understanding our things and for you to have the same. So those are literally the only three things that I think every single relationship needs to be functional and loving. And all this other shit that we've come up with, like living together and merging our lives together, and I would actually argue are harmful, or they just need to be rejigged and rethought. So I want to talk about the different facets that exist in every single relationship and how we can restructure them. If we assume that every relationship has these three fundamentals that we've just spoken about: kindness, shared vulnerabilities, and understanding. These other facets, family, sex, money, domesticity, and hobbies.
Interesting.
I think those are the 5 facets that every single relationship has. And I think we should relook at them and restructure them and see how they can be better. So should we start with our first segment?
Sure.
Or our first facet, rather. I think the first facet that needs to be relooked at is money. According to research, the number one cause of divorce is finances. And I think the normative narrative of relationships is that if you are in a couple, you should merge your finances. That's what everyone seems to do. That's what most people seem to do. Or that's what we all assume that we need to do. We should merge our lives, and by merging our lives, we therefore merge our finances. So I think this is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
I think this is the number one road to divorce, to a breakup, to resentment.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Here's the thing.
What's your
about
take
money.
on finance? How should we structure our finances in relationships?
Here's the thing about money and love. I think that when you talk about structuring things differently, doing things differently, not getting married, but still being in love, I think a lot of people view that as rich nigga shit. So it's like Oprah doesn't get married to stay.
Right.
Rihanna doesn't get married. So I think this idea, sitting here talking about this thing, comes
Mm.
off as a bit of an out of touch thing for lofty rich people who have. And
Interesting.
here's the complicated thing. I don't believe in merging finances. I
Yeah.
think it turns a relationship into a small business. I think most people are bad at running small businesses.
Yes.
I also think that the idea that the love of your life is going to be the business partner of your life is also going to be the creative part is psychotic.
Yeah.
Very delusional. That
Fact.
first of all, what would the odds of that be? And even if it was the case, why would you even want that?
Yeah.
Don't you want your partner to represent a rest from work and
Right.
not work itself?
Right.
And by the way, the only reason why people romanticize shit like this is because they've never really done it. We've done it, you know? So
Yeah,
we can
yeah.
say that, like, it is so much better when your partner just represents that warm feeling of getting off work and you guys play together. Here's the problem with marriage, though. When it comes to the straight ones and zeros, when it comes to the tax breaks,
Yeah.
when it comes to getting into real estate, I can't lie and say that getting married isn't the most efficient way to build wealth. I can't come here and say that you can have your cake and eat it too, that you
Yeah.
can live some new wave relationship where you both live in two different places and you pay two different rents and you don't intertwine finances and you don't put each other on your healthcare plan. I can't sit here and lie to you and say that you will come out richer. That is why it is viewed as some rich people should. If you are trying to escape poverty, marriage is financially one of the better ways to do it. That being said,
That's assuming you're marrying up. Is this the assumption?
no. Even if you're
Okay.
marrying the exact same class, how are you
Okay.
ever going to get money for a down payment by yourself working your shitty job at the Hertz rental car? How are you ever going to afford healthcare by yourself when it works at economies of scale? Insuring two people is cheaper than you insuring each, you know?
Yeah.
So what the elite class have said is we are going to make it so that you do not get anything by yourself. You will never be able to afford a decent life by yourself. I'm going to need you Pavels to couple up so we can get a buy one, get one free. That's what the state said.
Right.
So the whole thing is designed that if you are a poor or working class person, the way to escape poverty is to get married.
Right.
That being said, I'm not going to argue that. To me, that's obvious. Maybe you disagree. We can argue that a little
I
later.
do disagree, but let's
My
finish
point
your
is
point.
that even if that is the best way to escape poverty, even if that is the best way to build wealth, to build your empire, you can be Beyonce and Jay. Well,
Yeah.
is that more important than your happiness?
Right.
Because although I think marriage is the best way to escape poverty and build wealth, I do not think it is the best way to be happy. And I think that the reason why people have these lofty goals of like, oh, I'm gonna find my man, we're gonna build an empire, we're gonna get an Airbnb together, and whatever that thing is,
Yeah.
the YouTube couple dream. To me, it plays into this very Protestant idea of wealth, which is that your life is about the number on a page when you die. It is
Yeah.
about just hoarding a number, hoarding a bunch of money in a bank account. And that developed a long time ago out of just this belief that, you know, money is a direct sign of God blessing you. And I know it may seem so intuitive now that wealth is just about hoarding money in a big room, you and your
Yeah.
partner going out and building an empire and having a fat bank account, a fat 401k. But that's just really not how people viewed wealth for a very long time.
Right.
It was only when we adopted this very Protestant Calvinist view that it's just about hoarding a big pile of something because the amount that you can get to is indicative of your moral worth, your spiritual worth,
Right.
that we even viewed wealth that way. And I really think that affected the way that we view marriage because it is just about getting to the biggest number at the end of your life, because it is about getting a property, because it is about putting your kid in the nicest private school.
Yeah.
That needs to be a team effort, you know? But if you just have a different perception of wealth, wealth is your happiness, wealth is your physical health, wealth is your ability to hear your partner's voice and not get like a pit in your stomach.
Yeah.
Ugh, her again.
Right.
That's also wealth to me. So I think that a lot of people pursue marriage and want to pursue the traditional relationship path because they want this very specific idea of wealth, you know? And I think that's a big of a scam because I honestly, the idea of becoming a millionaire when I'm 68 and can no longer really walk up and down the steps.
Or enjoy your money. Yeah.
It's, you know, so anyway, that's sort of my answer. I do think that marriage is the best way to build wealth. If that is what you want out of life, marry a business partner and you guys build a little business together and you invest in property together. Do that. But if you want to be happy, if you want to stay in love, if you want to keep the spark going, I don't think marriage is how you do that. And then to me, it's just like it's each their own. What do you want out of life?
Yeah.
Do you want to die a millionaire? When you study America's millionaires, the secret is marriage. It's very hard to become a millionaire as a working class person if you don't get married. Combining two income, the ability for someone to work and pay the bills while someone else pays off debt. That's a great combination if you want to create a financial team. The ability to live off of one person's income while you invest the other person. This is a great money-making scheme. That's what marriage is about.
Yeah.
If you want your life to be about that, get married.
Yeah.
If you want to be happy, not only do I not think that has anything to do with that, I think it puts you in the worst possible position to be happy.
Yeah. So essentially what you're saying is that merging your finances in the traditional way that people usually do when they get married is the best way to optimize for wealth, but it's a terrible way to optimize for happiness.
Absolutely. Yeah.
See, I would actually argue that not only is it a terrible way to optimize for happiness, it's also a terrible way to optimize for
how are you scared? What rent can we pay by ourselves?
Let me tell you. So when you now live with someone.
Okay.
And by the way, relationships have hidden costs, okay? But let's talk about the domestic costs of being in a relationship. Once you move in with someone, those hidden costs like the utilities, the food, gas, water, whatever, electricity, those now scale up because there's 2 people in a household instead of 2. So, you know, people tell you, yes, when you live with someone, you can split all those utilities together. But the cost of those utilities goes up because now there's an extra person in the house.
That does not compare to living by yourself.
Once you merge your finances and you start moving in with someone, and we can move to our next segment, which is now domesticity. I really advocate for couples living separately. And there's a movement called Living Apart Together, which was a movement that started in the late 20th century, I believe. It actually started in Europe, of course. The progressive people. Why do all progressive movements start in Europe?
Yeah, they're just the most.
It's always like feminism.
Because God died there.
Because God died there.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a movement called Living Apart Together. And it started in the late 20th century in like the Netherlands and Scandinavia. You know, those countries where people have like healthcare and good lives, good governments. So it is a movement of people who decided that merging your lives and living together as a couple is really unsustainable and doesn't serve the higher purpose of love. And the idea behind living apart together is that as a couple, you live apart, but you stay together. Okay.
Yeah.
But you stay together because you avoid the resentment. And most importantly, love is about freedom. It's not about possession. And by living apart, you allow each other to have your own freedom, to have your own sense of self, to have your own independence. And that fosters love.
Listen, I hear what you say. What does this shit that these upper middle class Europeans that get free healthcare and fucking free shit from, what has that got to do with me and my black ass relationship when the rent is $6,000 a month and we both make it $3,000? I'm just saying, you get how this comes off as like most people just can't afford that luxury. It's really funny because a lot of people will ask me like, oh, how do you guys deal with the distance? And I'll be like, how do you guys deal with the closeness?
No, really, I mean, the distance is what keeps it spicy.
Right, no, more relationships end. And by the way, distance is very hard. More relationships end when people move in together.
Yes.
Than from distance.
From long distance, yeah.
Right.
Proximity kills intimacy. Nothing kills intimacy more than proximity.
Yeah. And I just think there's something very torturously inevitable about that. The chemical of love makes you just want to bond and just like smush together. And you come up with this dream together of your dream life and your dream house and your name. And then you're finally one entity. And you get what you think you wanted, but it is the process of becoming that joint entity that makes parts of you atrophy.
Absolutely.
And then the person that made you attractive to your part, that person that you were, that person that could cook for themselves, that person that could clean for themselves, that person that had their own career, their own set of friends, you lose that thing and now your partner's not fucking attractive to you.
Yeah.
And that's something that almost seems inevitable. You know, that's something about this process of domesticity that people yearn for, but then once they get it, they're just the dog that caught the car and now they don't know what to do with it.
100%.
And you literally just become less attractive to your partner.
Yeah.
The more you become what's basically like a shell of yourself, half of yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And no, I do think my perspective is definitely colored by the fact that I'm a woman. And when it comes to gender roles, in households of cishet couples, the invisible labor of upkeeping a house does fall on the woman. So living together does end up being more expensive for the woman. Because you also have to remember that, and this one might not even really be gendered sometimes, but two people will never have the same priorities or want the same thing out of a home. So let's say two people, Jack and Jill, move in together. Jill really needs the house to be spick and span, neat, tidy. Jack doesn't give a fuck. Jack could live in a pigsty and he really doesn't care. So although it seems as though we're going to split the cost of keeping the house clean 50-50, actually we're not, because Jack doesn't care if the house is clean. So Jack is not the one who's going to go and buy the cleaning materials. He's not the one who's going to know that the dishwashing soap is out. You know, he's not the one that's going to know that, oh, the broom broke or the vacuum needs to be repaired. So then the woman is the one that's going to end up paying for all of these costs while also having to do 2 or 3 times as much labor maintaining the house, because she's not only cleaning up for herself, she's also cleaning up for someone else. And that labor should be quantified because it is labor. So it is very expensive when you think about the fact that like this labor does have a number, it does have a value, and it's taken away from the woman's time and also her resources, because not only is she spending more of her time cleaning, cooking, she's also spending more of her money buying stuff to clean, buying stuff to cook. You know, there's all these memes on Reddit of like, I sent my husband to the store to get a banana and he brought back a bag of peaches. You know, it's just like, there's always going to be this imbalance of skill and also priority in a household. And then, you know, one person might want to live in a space that looks really nice and the other one just doesn't care. So then that means the person who wants to live in a space that's nice, she has to buy all the furniture. So it ends up just being so much more expensive living with someone else, because you have to compensate for all the ways that that person is not like you.
I get what you're saying. I still disagree, but that it's more expensive. But it doesn't matter because you're telling the truth in that, like, you're not going to live a good life, or like it's better to...
and you're going to have to compensate for the fact that you're not living a good life.
Yes,
financially.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You're going to have to go seek your happiness out somewhere else. You're going to have to clean more to make it to your liking. You're gonna have to just pay more or use up more of your time, which is money,
but
just to make it livable.
Here's what I've learned from living together. Nobody's right or wrong. And this is why I've reached the conclusion that it's actually, if you can afford it, which, by the way, I think is...
I say even if you can't afford it. No. If you can't afford... No, if you can't afford to live separately, don't be in a relationship there. Because how were you living before you met the person that you want to move in with?
I'm a big fan. Stay living with your parents.
Right.
And see each other and get a hotel every 2 weeks and fuck each other's brains out. I think even that's better. But the thing that I've learned living together is that nobody is right or wrong.
Right.
One person, their idea is that cleanliness is next to godliness and everything needs to be clean constantly. And that is like a moral belief in them, and they can't function, they can't think unless the apartment is spick and span. And that is valid. And they need that in order to be mentally well. Another person can maybe value their time. And they need to use as much of their time as possible, whether towards work or their hobbies. And that's their idea of morality, freedom, and being able to use my time the way that I want to. Neither person is wrong or right. They both have a valid cause, and they both deserve the basic dignity of living life the way that they want to live. That's oil, and that doesn't work. If one person values a clean house constantly and the other person values their time, there's really no perfect compromise there, you know?
There isn't.
We've just been denied the basic dignity of being able to live our own lives on our own schedules, and then it's been branded to us as romanticism. You know, like they took a little bit away from us, just as basic dignity. And in order to smooth that over, they sold it to us as like a dream. Like, no, you're gonna move in together, 100%. You're gonna have a great life, you're gonna have all the sex in the... That's the thing, people think they're gonna have so much sex.
Oh, you'll have so much less sex because you're always fighting.
and it's also like, I've seen this person shit, I've seen this person... It's just, it's not... That's so funny that men get the because we think we're going to have more sex.
No one has less sex than a married couple. No, you will have the least sex you will ever have when you're 10 years into a relationship. Because again, like Esther Perel always tells us, intimacy requires distance. Which, let's move on to our next facet, which is sex. So the standard narrative of relationships is that a healthy, functional couple is a monogamous couple.
Mhm.
It is a couple that only has sex with each other, and more importantly, only has sexual thoughts about each other.
Mhm.
And this is another thing I think needs to be completely restructured.
Now let's argue.
Are you ready
I'm
to
Mr.
argue?
Monogamy. I'm picking up where Charlie left off.
You know what? Let me pull up my notes. I have been reading this book. It's called Sex at Dawn. And it's a book written by two anthropologists. It's fascinating, by the way. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. And it's a book about the history of human sexuality.
Mhm.
And from reading this book, I've learned so much about who we really are as a species and what is in our best interest when it comes to sex and human relationships. My first argument is that monogamy is just not compatible with our biology, okay? We think of monogamy as this thing that is an extension of our biology, like we do monogamy the way penguins do monogamy because it's just the way we're biologically wired.
Mhm.
When really we forget that monogamy is actually a social technology that was invented about 10,000 years ago for the very specific purpose of enforcing paternity certainty and also property lines. It's about property.
Mhm.
So that's my first argument. Because if you zoom out over the course of human history, monogamy is very, very recent. You know, for most of human history, human relationships were very, very fluid. The sex was relatively communal, and I'll explain what I mean by that.
Freaky nigga.
And paternity certainty just wasn't a priority, you know? When I say that the sex was communal, I mean that
Diddy party?
generally,
That's what you're
a little
advocating
bit
for?
like a Diddy party.
That's
No,
what you're advocating
no.
for?
I mean that generally we used to live in these small knit communities. So maybe in this little clan there's 18 of us. So Lindy would have sex with Paul, but she'd also have sex with Jack, and then maybe she'd also have sex with Frank. But Frank would also have sex with Jack and Paul sometimes. And you know, Lindy would also have sex with Gemma, and Gemma would also have sex with Paul and Frank.
Babylon.
You know what I mean? Because we forget that the purpose of sex, and we've forgotten this because of Christian propaganda. The purpose of sex is not just to have babies. Sex, and you also see this in bonobos, which is very interesting, which is one of our closest ancestors. Sex is also a way to create social cohesion. It is just a way to bond. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's a way when we're all just having sex.
I'll remember that. I'll remember that. By the way.
Yeah. When I catch you in my bed.
It was bonding. You want me to have friends? I'll remember that. I'll put that back on you.
I was bonding with Deborah. We forget that sex has always been evolutionarily used as a tool for social cohesion among, you know, the clans and the tribes.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're just not really wired for monogamy. And it really was only with the rise of agriculture and private property, which really was only 10,000 years ago. So for hundreds of thousands of years, we were being fluid and, you know, we were enjoying ourselves. We were living harmoniously. You know, I have sex with Jem. Also, there's a lot of gay sex. You know, we forget that
That's
niggas have
natural.
been gay.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
niggas have been gay. And now we're forced cis-het, one person forever for the rest of the days, you know. There's also been a lot of polygamy, which I don't advocate for. I think polygamy is very oppressive and also dysfunctional. But yeah, like, I think that once men really needed to know who their biological children were so that they know who to allocate their resources are, that's when they started becoming very possessive of their children and then therefore very possessive of their wives, which then led to the invention of marriage. And once the institution of marriage emerged, now we have monogamy and niggas can't keep a marriage together. And now we have a more than 50% divorce rate. And what's funny about the fact that there's a more than 50% divorce rate is that the number goes up to 85% to women who have their own money.
Yeah.
You know? So
that's when y'all skedaddle.
that's right. my second argument, and I know this is where we're going to argue, is that jealousy is a cultural invention as opposed to a biological norm. I think, okay, we treat jealousy as proof that like we are meant to be monogamous.
Okay.
But jealousy is actually a cultural mechanism. Like, I'm not saying that no one was ever like the first hunter-gatherers are never jealous.
Okay.
But I just think the extent to which we've normalized like being obsessive about that's my man, that's my
You
girl,
don't think that's
and I'm
normal?
like that too. Like I'm a possessive person. I'm learning and I'm working on it. I'm growing.
No,
But I
I
think
remember
that
all
I
this.
was-
I remember all this.
I think that I was socially conditioned to be this jealous, possessive person, and it doesn't work in my favor. And I think we've all been conditioned to be jealous and to view our partners as our possession because it's a cultural mechanism that we needed to protect our properties.
Mango
You know?
physically assaults us when we pet another dog. Was
I
she
know, but Mango's
socialized into
not-
doing that?
Mango is she was to we've domesticated her for thousands of years.
Okay.
I'm not saying jealousy
Is
isn't
unnatural.
isn't
We made it
we
worse.
made this. Yeah.
We made
I'm
it
not saying that jealousy is completely unnatural, and
Yeah.
if not for monogamy, we would never be jealous. I'm just saying the extent to which when your partner has sex with another person, it's a complete trauma. Like it's traumatic. It ruins people's life. The extent to which it is that
Mhm.
is a cultural mechanism.
Mhm.
And yeah, I really think if you look at like evolutionary psychology, it suggests that jealousy was developed as a way of like mate guarding. That's what they call it in the book too. It's a mate guarding strategy, and it's not a symptom of true love. We view it as, oh my God, I'm so jealous of my man looking at this other woman because I love him. No, you've been conditioned over thousands of years to view your man looking at another woman as that woman taking something from you because that man is your possession. When really that's actually really unhealthy for both people. And I feel like although we're here already and we are jealous, and it is hard to not be jealous of your partner when they're having sex with someone else or they're interested in someone else or whatever the case may be, I do think that we should try and learn to evolve past that. You know? So all that to say, our brains and our bodies, they evolved in really small bands of communities where sex was part of group bonding. And agriculture, property...
It ain't shit else. Can we go play Frisbee or something? Do I got
We
like...
can!
Is there nothing
But
else we can do to build team spirit?
Why can't we also have... No, because when we have sex, chemicals are released.
I know, that's why we shouldn't complicate shit. Oh, no, continue your point.
Agriculture, property, inheritance... They created these incentives for monogamy and for jealousy to be viewed as this thing that is inherent. And this thing that is proof that we are monogamous and proof of true love. But yeah, my whole point is that monogamy is not biological as we've been told it is. It's actually like a very Christian economic and also social institution that's really just built to stabilize property and patriarchy. And I just wanted to share that take. Again, I do not advocate for polygamy. I think polygamy is dysfunctional, it's patriarchal, and it's disgusting. I also don't advocate for monogamy because it clearly doesn't work. We're fighting too much with our biology when we do monogamy. And it erodes people's sense of self. Monogamy just seems to be this thing that slowly kills you. And so I think that we should restructure sex and just monogamy as a whole to be something a little bit more fluid. Like maybe you meet someone, you fall in love, maybe now you're on a date, but maybe instead of going straight to marriage, maybe we say, hey, let's have a contract. Let's say, let's be together for 3-5 years and then let's renew it.
Right. You got an option at the end.
You know, and we don't need to get the government involved. We now don't need to get a lawyer involved that's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars once you need to get a divorce. Let's just make it a little bit more fluid. Let's say, hey, I don't know if it's realistic that you're not going to be attracted to other women for the rest of your life. Maybe in 3, 4, 5 years, we can say, hey, maybe let's go on a 6-month break and fuck other people. And then or I don't know. Let's brainstorm.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts?
Here's the thing. I hear your point that monogamy is not natural. And I agree. I also do not like the appeal to something being natural as indicative of some kind of moral worth.
Yeah,
I've heard pedophiles make that argument. I don't care whether or not something is natural. I don't care what women have their. It's a similar thing. You go down a dark road. But I agree that monogamy is not natural. And what's funny about being a boyfriend or a husband under monogamy is you have to do this bit, a bit that I actually enjoy and find endearing, where when asked about other women, you got to play dumb. Well, other women exist?
Yeah.
I just thought there was my wife. I only love I think that bit is good. Because it makes men behave.
Interesting.
And this is about these appeals to natural. I don't care what's natural for men because I find a lot of my thoughts horrifying. And I like that there is a cultural institution that makes me behave. And I like the bit. And by the way, I think that the discipline of doing the bit makes you love someone deeper because I don't think you can experience real, intense, true love without focus. I don't think you can experience love without sacrifice. I think that sacrifice is the origin of everything good. And that's why I love monogamy. That's why I'm Mr. Monogamy. I see the value in the bit.
You're being a pick-me. I'm kidding. You're going to come on this podcast with a majority woman audience.
By the way,
so you can be a pick-me.
It is sick that they, women will never be more attracted to you. They were like, I love my wife. Get the fuck away from me.
Right.
But it's like, there's a worth in the bit. And I feel like I know what men would be alike without the bit because I am a man and I don't like the way that looks. And I think that in the same way, like a system like capitalism just turns into like authoritarian corporatism at a certain point. I think that this free, more fluid system that you're proposing would naturally consolidate into polygamy. And that's my fear.
Explain.
I think that because of cosmic inequality and because of men's higher capacity for violence, and I just think that power naturally consolidates. And I think that a more fluid system would be good. And I wish we could be like bonobos, but I think we're chimps. And I think what naturally happens with our closer ancestor is that there's an alpha who bosses up on all the other niggas and creates. And something that I find so interesting, because I love reading old anthropology books, especially from the 60s, because I feel like people stopped doing anthropology because they didn't like what they were finding.
Right. It's very true.
But it's actually really interesting, especially when you read old anthropology books. But something that changed my mind and actually made me agree more with you is the old narrative on the agricultural revolution and the way that informed gender, created our modern concept of gender, was that some people started doing agriculture and then other people who were still hunter-gatherers saw that and were like, oh, this is better, let me do that. Yeah. It seems as if evidence more suggests that people were forced to do agriculture. Hunter-gatherers didn't want to give up this way of life. And when you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Hunter-gatherers had like these more fluid, open social dynamics. They had a more diverse diet, because they didn't have to eat the same things every day.
Yeah.
And also, like, although it was a lot of work going around picking berries and foraging, so is agriculture. And you have so much less autonomy. So I agree that this is not natural. All of these systems, they didn't end up here because they're the best thing, or they didn't win some Darwinistic competition for like what is the best system to live under. But I do think that unfortunately, powerful men in a more unorganized world come in and monopolize and use their capacity for violence and use their ability to impose themselves to create a sick world.
That's interesting.
And to me, it's not that monogamy is the peak of thing. I don't want to sound like one of these people who are like, well, capitalism's the best system we've come up with, so we should keep doing it. I want monogamy to evolve. I want couples to live apart. I want women to not be financially subservient to men. I want things to get better. I just feel like most of us, especially our age, get that we don't want to do the old thing. Women don't want to be their mothers. Men don't want to be our fathers. But we're living and we're dealing with ideas that are very recent. Like all of this critical gender shit that I believe in, by the way, this is stuff that started being talked about in the 90s. It's all new. And I think what's very weird is that now it's time to actually enter the praxis phase. Now it's time to actually not get married and model a good relationship. Because I don't really give a fuck what anyone has to say. Everyone has opinion about how relationships would work. It's time to like shut up and actually model it. It's time to actually like not get married, not do the traditional shit, and show the world that you can still be happy and show the world that you can still be on the same team, have a life partner.
Yeah.
The problem though is that although we're a society like yearning for something better than marriage, yearning for something better than the straight cishet dynamic or whatever, we're also very scared of change and like judgmental to people that are trying to do anything different. And it's interesting because like, I think effectively what we're trying to say is like, you know, we figured out something better than marriage. But let's say we were in a room full of married couples and we said that, people would hate us.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think we're just stuck in this weird thing where no one's come up with a better idea yet. And this is what we're trying to hash out right now. And I think we figured out some of the fundamentals. Domesticity doesn't work. The loss of independence that going into a domestic partnership does to you makes parts of your brain atrophy. And you become stupid. You become like the man who doesn't know how to clean up for himself, or like the woman who doesn't know how to deal with her own finances. You become a word. So I feel like we've correctly like diagnosed things, but there's a lack of courage. And even amongst the most progressive people, there's just an aversion to anything different. And there's a bit of that. You think you better than me?
Yeah.
You think you better than me?
No, I definitely see that. Yeah.
And then there's also just that thing. You'll often see a lot with like older women when they look at younger women in their families who, you know, are more feminist. And there's a resentment of someone unlocking a path that was actually kind of available to you the whole time, but you didn't know existed. You just naturally feel a resentment because them going out there and living that more free, independent life actively reminds you of all the shit that you could have did, but you didn't, you know?
Interesting.
So for a bunch of reasons, I feel like we've correctly diagnosed the old thing as bad. We haven't quite created the new thing, and now we're just in this weird limbo space.
We are, definitely.
And the thing about the old institutions is the old institutions still have hard power. Like Christianity still has hard power. Marriage still has hard power. And we're just trying to navigate this new thing with like soft beliefs. You have vague beliefs of like, oh, why patriarchy is bad. But what does the shit look like though? And who's modeling it well? And I just feel like the next step is just to walk through the wilderness and model well. But much like the fucking Jews enslaved in Egypt, it's like what comes after bondage is not the promised land.
Yeah.
It's the desert.
Yes.
You do not leave the Pharaoh's captivity to go to the land of milk and honey. You wander in the desert for 40 years. And this is the wandering in the desert phase.
Yeah.
And there's a few couples that are like trying to do it and like honestly attempting to do it. But it's fucking hard and you get a lot of pushback and no one really knows what they're doing yet.
Yeah, I think we are one of those couples. We're trying to do a different thing.
Yeah.
And we're doing a lot of trial and error. And this is what I encourage other couples to do is instead of just following the standard narrative of what a healthy, functional relationship is, because clearly it's not healthy and functional. When you look at standard relationships around you, they're very dysfunctional. So I just think try shit out. Like we tried living together, it didn't work. So we're not gonna, you know, it's also like, don't be afraid to change course. You know, I also think a lot of people think that if something goes wrong in a relationship, that means you have to end the whole thing. No, it just means try something else. Like if living together doesn't work, then don't live together. Try something else. Try living next door to each other. Try living with, each of you live with roommates. Like, you know, try something. Just keep trying different things. If merging your finances doesn't work, try not merging your finances. If doing sexual monogamy isn't working, try opening it up. Just try.
You know, here's like this really delicate tightrope that you work trying to figure out a new thing. It's also in any new business or anything new endeavor that you're trying to go on. Success requires such a delicate balance of like stubbornness and malleability. Like knowing when to call it quits, like knowing when this thing isn't working. Yeah. Let's try something else. Not falling into the sunk cost fallacy of like, well, I already spent this much time doing, we already put our names on the lease. Why don't we just, if you living together is ruining your relationship, break the lease.
Break the lease.
But then it also requires this stubbornness, which is what I'm trying to advocate of like the boyfriend bit of like, I like the bit. I like being stubborn about loving someone. I like going like, no matter how I feel today, no matter like I am dedicated to this person.
Yeah.
So that's a very tough thing to balance. Like that stubbornness of like, I made a promise to this person is my life partner, but also the malleability and being light on your feet enough to get that like, hey, this particular form of this relationship isn't working.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
That's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
You need to be two polar opposite things at the same time.
Yeah.
And you need to know when to be what. So that's the dance, you know?
No, absolutely.
And it's uncharted waters.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think this would be a good time to move on to our next facet, which is family. How should we structure family? So the standard narrative of family under relationships is the nuclear family. Man, woman get together, they have a baby or 2 or 3 or 4, and the 2 of them raise those children by themselves. I think this is the most diabolical thing that has ever happened in the history of I don't think there's one thing that is redeemable about the nuclear family. I think that communal child rearing and just like multi-parenting families are a lot more functional. I also think that romantic love is a very, very volatile context in which to raise a human being. And it's insane that 2 people would try and do the most important job in the history of the planet, which is raising a child.
Yeah.
In this context that is extremely volatile.
Yeah.
Like it just makes no sense. I think what would be a better thing to do, and I also have a bit of a hot take. When I look at how many absent fathers exist on this planet, I don't think that men are wired for child rearing. I think some are, but for the most part, like men are just not wired for child rearing. So I don't think we should continue to force them. No, I don't think it's necessary. And I think it just causes resentment, dysfunction, trauma, very unnecessarily. I think what should happen is that when a child is born, a group of women, maybe it's your sisters and your aunts, or maybe it's your friends, just a group of women that you know, love, and trust, you guys all come together and you raise this child together, or you raise both children or 3 children. And then men can sort of be like the assistants to the parenting. You know?
We're the assistant to the regional manager.
Right, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't think that men should be expected or forced to take on this like dominant parenting role.
So you think the problem with the Black community is there are too many present fathers?
No, I think the problem is that men have showed us who they are. So like, why are we still pretending that? And there are a few good there are a few good men that you know will take care of their kids. But if you look at the vast majority of families, like men are largely absent or they cause a lot of trauma in the household. And I just think it's like, why are we forcing issues? You know, let's not force someone who can't do something to do a thing, you know? So,
No, I would just say it hurts to hear, but you're not wrong. You know, I mean, like when you look around at my friends and people I know, like not many people had good dads. Not many. And I also think it's very ignorant and privileged as someone who I feel like had a good dad to now be super defensive about that. Like, oh, well, my dad, well, clearly most people didn't have that.
No.
So I get what you're saying. And by the way, everything I'm about to say is not a defense of the nuclear family, because I think the nuclear family is very redeemable. And we can do, is irredeemable.
Oh, okay.
It's irredeemable and we can do so much better. That being said, like I said, everyone knows how to diagnose the problem, right?
Yeah.
No one knows how to do something better. I've noticed amongst my male friends, and mind you, I'm in my late 20s. I have some friends who are in their 30s. Men are on this shit now where they're like, I just want to live with my boys.
Yeah.
I go to my friends in New York and I go to their house and there's a fucking beer pong table for a dining room table.
Yeah.
And like, it's just, and I think that they're onto something in the sense that, all right, it is good that you lived with each other. It may be some of you are happier than if you were living with your girlfriends. None of them have girlfriends, by the way, because no woman wants to come to your house where your dining room table's a beer pong table. But anyway, I think that there's some validity to the fact that, you know, if women are more comfortable around each other and that's a better community for the children, they should live like that. If men are more comfortable around each other and work harder around each other, which by the way, I think is really true. I think that when men live with each other, there's that natural competitive spirit that kicks in, and maybe you'll be more successful and maybe you'll actually get more resources to give to your kid. And maybe that's how you're more useful. And maybe it's not as gendered as that and it's just about personality types. But regardless, I agree that we need to break apart the nuclear family and do something better. But what I see forming now is actually just people living in an infantile state for their entire lives.
Yeah.
And these fucking 30-year-old men that I know living in a fucking frat house.
Yeah.
Until therefore they all have their actual serious jobs and then they come home and play beer pong every day and form a really bad cocaine habit.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't think that's on women's responsibility to fix, right? When it comes to a lot of men, something I advocate for is I would rather you live alone than live this frat boy lifestyle into your late 30s. Because maybe you'll learn some responsibility then. Maybe you'll learn how to keep a house by yourself. Maybe you'll learn to cook for yourself. And then maybe a woman will find that attractive because, oh, look, a man who actually knows how to take care of themselves, you know, not someone who I have to treat like a child. But I see the end of the nuclear family leading to something even worse. I see men living in frat houses. I see people living with roommates that there's nothing wrong with living with roommates, but roommates that they hate. I see people embarrassed of their living conditions to the point that it is hard to advance in their lives because they're ashamed of bringing the girl that they went on a Tinder date with back to their little hole of an apartment.
Yeah.
We could do something better, but I just see what is filling the vacuum of the nuclear family being even worse. I see people staying in a perpetual infantile state. I see people's living conditions just getting worse and worse and worse. And I just feel like we're backsliding, you know? And I think that what would be ideal is if maybe working 40 hours a week could get you your own little house and maybe you could get into a neighborhood where you can live just right down the street from your girlfriend or right down the street from your boyfriend. And maybe that neighborhood would have some shared amenities, maybe a tennis court or something where you guys can do shared things together.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what, it's fucking.
I know. There's a rustling in the bushes. So if we die. Yeah.
But I think that would be ideal. And that's, by the way, when I really imagine what a healthy relationship looks like, that's what I see. I see a couple, maybe they're neighbors. Maybe they have a cute little townhouses next to each other.
Living apart together.
The woman has her own space. The man has her own space. Maybe they have some hobbies that they do together. Maybe when they get off work, there isn't just assumed thing of, hey, we're hanging out. Maybe you got to initiate the time that you spend together. Maybe that time together is a bit more intentional now.
Yeah.
Maybe this thing of like, oh, well, he never plans dates. And well, now that you live apart, he does plans dates because you don't just come home and find each other. There has to be some intention put into that. There's a bit more effort into that.
Yeah.
Maybe now your sex life is better because that time together is more intentional.
It certainly will be.
Right. So that's what I see. That's what I really see. I think that costs about $1.5 million, if I'm being honest. If we're just being very practical about what that would
Stop buying Labubus.
We're gonna get fucking look at Ben Shapiro over here. Oh, you're poor, start a private equity firm.
It's everyday Labubu, but you can't afford.
Yes, a Labubu's $40. Rent is $4,000. Yes, I can afford a Labubu.
No, I'm being facetious.
But that is what I see. And by the way, I think if that was presented to people and it was this age-old time tradition, like the romanticism of moving in together and the Cinderella bullshit, I think more people would want that.
Yeah.
I think more people want their own kitchen. I think more people want a bathroom that they don't have to worry about their partner walking into after they leave. I think more people want that.
No, absolutely.
I think more women want more intentionally planned dates.
Yeah.
I don't think women like this. Oh, what do you want to eat today? Oh, I don't know. You decide. I think more women would enjoy like, hey, I planned this thing. We're going to this restaurant today. I think that the time you would spend together would be better. I think you cannot maintain dignity as a human being without having your own bathroom. I
agree with you.
I don't think that you can make your own schedule without having your own kitchen.
Yeah.
I think sometimes men want to make something really unhealthy and just eat it without a woman over there. Just like, that's unhealthy. Why are you eating that? I think that we want to do that.
No, it's true. This is a really common one. This is a really, when you move in with your man, you're like, you eat like this?
Yes.
But it's crazy because it's like, you have such good skin and I can't believe you eat like this.
Yes.
And no, but it's true. It's like, But it's also like, yeah, everyone deserves to just eat what they want to eat. And there's so many instances in relationships where sometimes it's not about healthy and unhealthy. It's just a cultural thing. Like, I know this one couple where the woman is from South Korea and the man is British. And the man just sort of hates all of the food that she makes.
And tired of that
he hates because he wants his beans on toast. That's his culture.
Right.
That is his culture. He wants to eat his boiled chicken and his beans on toast. And when he tastes the flavor, the seasoning in the bibimbap, you know what I mean? It's just too much for him.
Listen,
it's too much. So what must happen?
And you can bet no one's wrong or right. But for example, I love that you're vegan. You look great. You're healthy. Sometimes I want to Uber Eats my McFatty Krabby Patty pie,
right?
And I want to watch the Knicks, and I want to eat it like a gremlin.
Yes.
And then I don't. What are you eating? Why? You're gonna get a stomachache. Don't you have a stomachache? Right? Yes.
Right.
I have diarrhea right now, but I do also want to eat my McPatty pie.
Yeah, and that is your prerogative.
And I deserve to kill myself.
Yeah. Yes.
And you deserve and they listen, nobody's wrong. I'm wrong, but I deserve to kill myself.
Yeah.
So listen, I deserve to Uber Eats my McPatty pie without you berating me.
No, it's true. No, it's true.
And also, like, you shouldn't be responsible for my health. I know that, like, that's very unromantic, but also, like, I'm not your son. You know?
No, I do think a lot of mothering happens in relationships where, a woman is now trying to make the man healthy because if he wants to be healthy when he decides he wants to be healthy, he will take that upon himself. But also I do think there's an awkwardness in, like, maybe I love soup. I love a soup.
Soup is not
a lot of see, but like in my culture, like legumes, like there's just a lot of soupy thing, and in your soup is not a meal to you. So now it's awkward.
In my culture, we're in dire poverty. If we're eating soup for dinner.
Right.
I mean, there's a problem.
Yeah.
In our finances, but there's no one's wrong or right.
Right.
No one's wrong.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think most men should change. I don't like that I
disagree.
Well, here's the thing. I don't like that I spent a lot of my 20s in an unfurnished apartment eating a McPatty pie off of a cinder block.
Yeah.
With my PS5 in front of me. But here's the thing about changing, and I see this change happening in some of my friends who either figured it out, they got into a relationship they like, or they were able to kind of leave whatever that infantilist frat boy phase is and get their own apartment and take care of it, is you need your own place to really change. When you're living with someone else, or you're living with your roommates or whatever, you can do cocaine off of the beer pong table that you're using as your dining room table. It's very sad doing cocaine alone in your house off of your IKEA center table. Yeah. That's when you go, hey, this is sad.
Right.
Or when you live alone as a man, which this is something I'm still guilty of, and you order the McPatty pies by yourself and you eat them, and now you're just sitting there and you're like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. Yeah. That's when you change. Because, maybe I should go to the Stop and Shop tomorrow and buy some chickpeas and make a salad.
Yeah.
But this idea of I'm going to get into a relationship, we're going to move in together, and I'm going to change him.
Yeah.
No, people change when they hit rock bottom.
Yeah. And you just got to allow your person to hit.
And that happens alone. Like when it comes to my health and certain things you had berated me for years.
Yeah.
I only change when I hit my own rock bottom by myself.
When you were in the hospital. When you were in the hospital and they destroyed your kidneys because you live in America and you don't even have proper hospitals.
Right. But here's my thing. I don't think you really learn that in the marriage. I also don't think you learn that in the frat house.
Yeah.
Which is why when it comes to the number one advice I give is, like, if you can, live alone. Like, learn how to fucking take care of yourself.
But I do think, sorry to interrupt you, and I've said this in previous episodes, that men are all gay. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that male friendships are very homoerotic. Yeah. And I think that's why you guys do... to be fair, I think we're all gay. I think women are also very gay for each other, but that's socially acceptable. But I think it's not really socially acceptable for men to admit that you're very homoerotic. And so I do think there's something healthy in men being like, yeah, I want to live with my boys and I want to be gay with my boys. And there is definitely like a bear that's going to come out and kill us. So we will wrap it up soon.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And there's nothing wrong with being gay.
Yeah.
But there is something wrong about having a beer pong table as your dining room table at 38. There's something
Yeah.
wrong. And I know, but I know it just seems, no, there's something morally wrong about that.
Yeah.
There's something systemically. And I think it's good that as men and women, we have to learn how to compromise with each other. This is not an argument against compromise. By the way, there'll still be so much compromise even when you live apart, because you'll still have to plan your time. You have to compromise on where you go on vacation, compromise on how much time you say. There's enough compromise just baked into the living together, not even just like the physically living together.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
and I like that we influence each other,
Yeah.
but there's certain things that you shouldn't compromise on.
Yeah.
And those are the things, that's the essence of who you are.
Yeah.
So if you're a degenerate who, instead of having a bedside table, you just have cinder blocks.
Yeah.
And you like to eat Uber Eats and then eat the burger off the cinder blocks while you watch the game on your PS5. And that's you. That's who you are.
I think be that with your chest.
Yes.
It's funny, I live now I live in Johannesburg and I live in this apartment block. And sometimes after I park my car, I'll see men sitting in their cars eating a burger like a gremlin. And it's just like, it's sad
We
that
just don't want to be berated. And
you guys don't want to be judged for eating your deep fried McOreo McPatty pie in front of your but that's why I think everyone live separately, so you can at least have the dignity of eating your deep fried McOreo steak McPatty pie in your 1-bedroom apartment where your table is a ping pong table. You should at least have the dignity of doing that.
Yes, I agree.
So, the last segment we wanted to touch on was hobbies, but we are running out of time. So maybe we can just
I think
do
we're also
a
about
whole... Yeah, we're definitely also
loud.
about to be, there's like an animal that's coming for us. You might not, you guys, I think you might not even get this episode. So we will talk about hobbies because hobbies are a really big part of maintaining relationships. And we want to talk about why no one has hobbies anymore. And in my opinion, that is the downfall of a lot of relationships. But before we get killed and murdered in this forest in Johannesburg, let's call it a day. So thanks for listening, you guys. Let us know your thoughts on restructuring relationships. Do you agree with anything? Do you disagree with anything? Let us know. Mango's also looking worried now. Say bye, Mango.
Where the fuck do these people got me right now?
Say bye, Mango Pants. Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
That was dope.
That was. Let's get the fuck out of here.